Tonight, let down by the system. A fatal accident inquiry hears from the parents of a baby who died in her mother's arms just 12 hours after being born.
Also making the headlines, uncertainty for homeowners and buyers after the collapse of one of Scotland's major house builders. Some fear they'll be forced to live on building sites.
Having spent a lot of money like our neighbours on these houses, it's a little difficult to swallow. We don't know what to do about it. It's costly to fix things.
Could a ban on XL bully dogs be on the cards for Scotland? Ministers say an update is imminent.
And couples left scrambling around for new wedding venues after their big days were cancelled with just months to go by a Fife hotel.
I'm John Mackay in Glasgow.
And I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. Let down by the system. The parents of a baby who died just 12 hours and 1 minute after being born at Wishaw General Hospital in Lanarkshire say they were failed in all ways.
Mirabelle Bosch's parents told a fatal accident inquiry that despite being a low-risk pregnancy, medical teams' inability to think outside the box in a crisis led to their daughter's death. Vanessa Taff was in court.
Roselle and Urquhart Bosch's daughter survived for just 12 hours and 1 minute. Mirabelle died in her mother's arms at Wishaw General Hospital on the 2nd of July 2021. At a 31-week scan, Mirabelle was said to be in a breech position, meaning her head was facing the wrong way. 3 weeks later, a student nurse and Roselle Bosch's regular midwife said her baby was no longer in this position. On Wednesday, 30th of June 2021, after Roselle Bosch's waters broke, complications began. Until this point, the pregnancy had been classed as low risk. When Mrs. Bosch contacted Wishaw General Hospital about her contractions, she was told to stay at home until she could no longer stand or breathe with the pain. She told the court today that staff there reassured her everything would be fine because she sounded calm enough on the phone. But hours later, when her husband called an ambulance service and the birth had begun, it was clear something was seriously wrong. Ambulance staff called for expert help and backup, but were told none was available. By the time Mrs. Bosch was transferred to Wishaw General Hospital, her care was urgent and she was advised there was little chance of Mirabelle surviving. Mr. Bosch told the inquiry medical staff helping his wife didn't have the capacity to think outside of the box in a crisis while his child was on the brink of death. This fatal accident inquiry is to establish the circumstances around the deaths rather than to apportion blame. Alongside examining the medical care given to Mirabelle and her mother, it will look into Ellie McCormick's death. She was just 5 hours old when she also died at Wishaw General Hospital, and Leo Lamond, who was just 2 hours old when he died at University Hospital Monklands. The inquiry is expected to last 3 weeks and will resume again tomorrow. Vanessa Taff, STV News at Glasgow Sheriff Court.
Paula Venables, the former chief executive of the Post Office, has handed back her CBE amid renewed anger at the treatment of sub-postmasters accused of theft by the faulty Horizon software system.
It comes as the UK and Scottish governments said they were considering action to overturn hundreds of wrongful convictions. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Goutsianis has the latest.
As CEO, Paula Venables pressed ahead with prosecution of sub-postmasters, even though concerns were already being raised about the Horizon system. Within a year of Ms Venables being awarded a CBE in 2018, the first court ruling was made for the Horizon victims. Handing back the honour today, she apologised for the devastation caused to sub-postmasters and their families.
And Paris, there's been movement today on efforts to speed up justice and compensation for those affected.
That's right. Remember that victims of this scandal have to have their convictions overturned in order to receive the full compensation they're due. But it's a slow process across the UK. Less than 100 people have been cleared. In Scotland, just 2 out of 16. Today, the UK and Scottish Justice Secretaries both said their governments were considering all options to overturn remaining convictions.
There remains 800 post office convictions based on bad data. Until those convictions are overturned, the victims cannot claim compensation. We can do something good, Mr. Speaker, together, if the Justice Secretary would bring a simple bill to quash all 800 immediately.
I'm very grateful to the right honourable gentleman who, with his customary precision, puts his finger on this appalling injustice. The suggestions he made is receiving active consideration. I expect to be able to make further announcements shortly.
The Scottish Government is open to taking further action. We want to take action that is first and foremost most effective for those who have been impacted by this scandal here in Scotland, and in that sense we have an open mind to the best way forward. We will of course work with the UK Government, who have particular responsibilities in this regard.
The other development is that Fujitsu, the company behind the Horizon system, UK ministers say it could be pursued for the costs of compensation, already running to hundreds of millions of pounds. That will need the outcome of an ongoing public inquiry. Still to give evidence, the former CEO of the Post Office, Paula Venables.
Paris and Westminster, thank you. Homeowners say they fear they will never get issues fixed and will continue to live on building sites following the collapse of one of Scotland's major house builders. STV News has learned hundreds of Stuart Milne Group staff were sacked via a pre-recorded message on their first day back from the festive break.
Redundant workers say they're devastated. Tonight, there are now questions about how and when developments will be finished. Brandon Cook reports.
This street is among the latest to be completed on this Hamilton development. It's so new, just a handful of the dozen homes have residents. We are told people were still viewing these properties as late as last weekend, just a day before the Stuart Milne Group plunged into administration. Janine moved here 2 months ago.
Really worried, but I'm trying to stay positive in that the quality to date has been great, so hopefully there will be no major defects, but it is uncertain. You still have a sort of worry that anything could happen. It's still early days.
Throughout today, workers on behalf of administrators were packing up tools. Kevin has stayed here for just over a year. His home has a snag list of around 20 defects needing fixed.
For us, having spent a lot of money like our neighbours on these houses, it's a little difficult to swallow. We don't know what to do about it. It's costly to fix things, especially when you don't have the skills or the trade to do it. So naturally we'll have to probably spend a good bit of money finishing off our house.
Across the estate today, there's shock at the speed of all of this and uncertainty for exactly what it means for those waiting to move in and for those already here.
The company, although it's no longer trading, has gone into administration rather than liquidation. So the administrator takes over the company's obligations for the time being. You should therefore contact the administrator as soon as possible.
STV News understands over 200 staff were told they'd lost their job via a blanket pre-recorded call yesterday afternoon. A now redundant employee who didn't want to be identified said he and his colleagues are devastated.
We had to get a Bible team here on this site to huddle in somebody's phone, and we managed to connect to it on somebody's private phone. A fully pre-recorded message that there was no interaction with at all. It was literally just to listen, and then that was it. As soon as it was done, it hung up. Everybody in the business got that in Stuart Milne Homes, Scotland. It was a complete and utter surprise, but an utter disbelief.
The Scottish Government today said they would be trying to help those affected. The administration ends decades of house building by the firm, and tonight many questions still linger, while hundreds begin the year looking for new jobs. Brandon Cook, STV News.
The Scottish Government is expected to ban XL bully dogs. Ministers are aiming to legislate against the dogs by the end of this month. A UK government ban in England and Wales is due to fully come into force on the 1st of February.
Some XL bully dog breeders had hoped Scotland would be a safe haven for the animals, but ministers said today they would update their policy imminently. Our political editor Colin Mackay is in the Scottish Parliament. So Colin, what's the latest?
Well, the UK government ban on these XL bully dogs was announced in England and Wales before Christmas. It started to come into force at New Year. The Scottish government has been slow to react here, and that encouraged lovers of the breed to think that Scotland could become a safe haven. Now, that risk of an influx of XL bully dogs seems to have spurred the Scottish government into a U-turn today, because if they didn't do that, then the first XL bully dog attack or incident in Scotland would certainly have cost a minister or someone in government their job. The Tories today said that the government has dithered and delayed, but it came up at Cabinet today and ministers agreed that something had to be done, and then it came up in the Parliament this afternoon.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will reconsider its position on further regulating the ownership of American XL bully dogs in Scotland, in light of reports that widespread rehoming from England to Scotland is raising public safety and animal welfare concerns.
The unintended consequences of the UK government's policy is that we're now seeing an influx of XL bully dogs coming to Scotland. It is important to ensure Scotland does not become a safe haven or a dumping ground for the XL bully dogs from England and Wales. And I can confirm to Jamie Green and the Chamber that in light of recent events, ministers are urgently reviewing the policy on XL bully dogs, and public safety will be paramount in our deliberations, and a timetable for any policy change will be updated to Parliament imminently.
What happens next, Colin?
Well, imminently there is what the Minister said. She means that legislation should be in place by the end of this month. The UK legislation makes these dogs harder to own. It means they have to be neutered and muzzled. It also bans the breeding and sale of these dogs. The Scottish legislation will end up doing much the same because ministers don't want Scotland to become a dumping ground for dangerous dogs.
Colin, at the Scottish Parliament, thank you.
Next week, the UK COVID inquiry moves to Scotland for a series of hearings about decisions made here. The former First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, will be among those giving evidence.
There is also a fresh appeal for people who were impacted by the pandemic to come forward and share their experiences. Our senior reporter, Gordon Cree, reports.
This is a big day for Hussein. He's come from Aberdeen to Edinburgh to meet officials from the UK COVID inquiry. He's keen to highlight the unintended consequences of lockdown for people like him. Living with visual impairment and chronic pain, he still feels the effects of that time 4 years on.
Before the pandemic, I used to walk miles every day. I really enjoyed getting out into the city centre with a sat-nav. I'd have the White King here in one hand, talking sat-nav in the other. And I used to really enjoy that because it would keep me in touch with what was going on, keep me in touch with what was happening around the city. I pretty much don't do any of that now because once you've lost your confidence, it's really difficult to get it back.
Something as simple as shopping had been radically changed in March 2020. One-way systems in supermarkets, but people with poor eyesight couldn't see them. And staff were often reluctant to guide them round because of the messaging about keeping 2 metres distance. Hussein says the whole experience left him stressed, and he hopes the inquiry looks at how these issues were not part of the decision-making process in government.
And for me, perhaps the biggest question is, we all know the saying that one size doesn't fit all. And one person isn't the same as another, and even 2 visually impaired, chronic pain suffering disabled people aren't alike. So where will those checks and balances?
A major listening exercise called Every Story Matters is being run by the inquiry, looking to hear from anyone wanting to share their personal experience of the pandemic. Next week, Baroness Hallett will chair hearings at the EICC.
During the pandemic, so many things were decided here in Scotland that affected the Scottish people. It's only right that the UK inquiry should be here to hear from them in person.
Among those coming to give evidence, Nicola Sturgeon. She'll face forensic questioning about policy and decision-making, but it's likely process issues will come up too. Expect WhatsApp messages to get more than a passing mention. Gordon Cree, STV News, Edinburgh.
Other stories, and the number of people waiting more than 4 hours in A&E has risen sharply. 60.8% of people were seen in the last week of December within the Scottish Government's target time of 4 hours. That's down from 65% the week before. The number of people waiting more than 12 hours also rose by nearly a third.
And charities are warning the Scottish Government's budget could increase poverty next year. Holyrood's Finance Committee also heard from economists that there is not enough in the spending plans to promote growth. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation say cuts to the housing budget could stop the Scottish Parliament meeting targets to tackle poverty.
There is a significant risk with the huge cuts to funding for affordable housing in particular that this budget could lead to a rise in poverty as well. And I think there aren't that many budgets left before the Scottish Parliament's child poverty reduction targets have to be met in 2030-31.
The Equalities Minister insists proposals to ban what's known as conversion therapy will end harmful acts while protecting family life and religious beliefs. Conversion therapy seeks to change someone's sexual or gender identity, and a consultation on the Scottish Government's plans to criminalise the practice is now underway.
Opponents say they'll take legal action if the new law threatens free speech or criminalises advice given in good faith. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie reports.
It's very shameful to be told that who you are is wrong or is in need of being changed or fixed or cured or anything like that.
Blair has no contact with his family after they spent several years telling him being gay was not an option. He still suffers long-term effects of his conversion therapy and is now backing an outright ban.
I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I almost lost my life multiple times through suicide when I was a child. We understand that people are concerned that, you know, it's going to be kind of police at the dining table listening to your conversations. That's not going to happen. But what this hopefully will do is give all LGBT people, and especially LGBT young people, the ability to say what's happening to me isn't right.
The proposals say conversion therapy means having a purpose or intention to change or suppress another individual's sexual orientation or gender identity. The new law will not apply to a situation where a person is providing advice, guidance or support. However, some fear the law will go too far.
The introduction to the proposals that the Scottish Government's issued talks about you can have conversations with people as long as you don't try and direct them. Well, nobody lives their life on that basis. We all have opinions, and we would all like to think that other people would share our opinions. So the idea that that is the threshold for a new criminal law, I think people will find absolutely outrageous.
The resources.
Ministers insist family life and religious beliefs will be protected.
What we're trying to do here is end really harmful acts, and that we're being very specific about the tests that have to be met in order to be considered that.
What do you say to parents who are maybe concerned that their private conversations with their children will effectively be criminalised?
I would say to them, we absolutely encourage parents to talk to children who are, maybe questioning or struggling with their sexual orientation or perhaps gender identity. The only time that would ever be captured by the criminal offence that we've proposed is if the parent causes real harm to their child.
The consultation will run until the start of April. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
A man who was arrested in connection with the death of a woman in North Berwick on New Year's Day is still in hospital 8 days on. Ceolchipiel Naso Isaacs, who was known as Naso, was discovered by police following a disturbance at a property on Craigleith Avenue. A 37-year-old man, believed to be Naso's husband, was arrested and taken to the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary where he remains. Inquiries are ongoing. A third person has been charged in connection with the death of a man outside an Edinburgh pub. Mark Webley died after being shot while leaving a Hogmanay party at the Anchor Inn in Granton. A 32-year-old man and 25-year-old woman appeared in court yesterday, charged with murder. A 33-year-old woman is now also due in court tomorrow. Now, a dog has died after falling from a cliff at Winterfield Park in East Lothian. Dunbar RNLI's lifeboat volunteers were called to the rescue yesterday. Despite arriving within minutes, the dog did not survive, but crews were able to recover and reunite the pet with its owners. Now, dozens of couples who had their weddings cancelled after a Fife hotel decided to get rid of its function suites say they've been left devastated. They're now scrambling to replace their venue at short notice. Lewis Mickey reports.
Planning a wedding isn't easy, so when Claire and partner Malcolm had their venue booked a year in advance, it felt like a weight off their shoulders. until they found out the event at the Gilvan Bank Hotel near Glenrothes was being cancelled.
Just was on the Blushing Bride Scotland forum and discovered through that the Gilvan Bank has cancelled all weddings. We phoned Saturday morning and I was told, yep, the social media posts are correct. There was a bit of a laugh from them saying, oh yeah, I've heard we're trending on social media in a bad way. I was like, yeah, you are. Is it true? Is my wedding cancelled? To be told yes, it was cancelled.
The Gilvan Bank's owners had planning permission granted last month to turn its event space into more bedrooms. Megan and partner Stacey are also scrambling to find a replacement for their August date.
We would like to stick to as close to as our date as possible. We've paid for other vendors who are only available on that date, so it's not really just the money we've paid towards a Gilvan Bank. We've lost everything. Myself and my partner Stacey, we've lost sleep over this. It's given us a great deal of anxiety. We had this big dream. The Gilvan Bank told us that we're going to make this happen.
The Gilvan Bank's owners, Kingdom Hotels, told local press all couples will receive a full refund. They insist people were informed either by email or letter of the cancellations. With so many couples left in the lurch, other local venues are doing what they can to save the day. The Old Manor Hotel in East Neuk has been in touch with many of those let down.
I think it was just a case of trying to do our best to reach out with some of the dates that we had available. Obviously been quite short notice, so lots of weddings are booked quite well in advance. We still do have some dates available for this year. We also have a sister hotel, the Bay Hotel, along at Kinghorn, and certainly if you want to reach out and get in touch with us, we can try and accommodate you the best we can, because we know there's still quite a few couples that are still struggling to get a venue.
Some couples have already secured a replacement venue, but many, like Claire and Malcolm, have been left frantically picking up the pieces. Lewis Mickey, STV News, Fife.
It's nearly 22 minutes past. That sounds like Ramadan time. Guess what?
Here I am. Thanks, John. Good evening to you all. STV News has learned Sam Lammers is set to leave Rangers within the next 48 hours to sign for Dutch side Utrecht on loan until the end of the season. The forward joined the Ibrox side in the summer but has failed to impress, scoring 2 goals in 31 appearances. STV News understands there's no option to buy in the deal. At Celtic, Yusuke Udoguchi has joined Japanese side Vissel Kobe in a permanent transfer. Scott Brown says there's quite a big gap between Celtic and Rangers and believes the quality of his former club will be the difference come the end of the season. Alan Hutton disagrees. He reckons there's not much between the two teams. Here's Ronnie Charters.
Two men who know a thing or two about winning silverware. Scott Brown and Alan Hutton in Glasgow today, promoting the upcoming Scottish Cup fixtures next weekend. But it was the gap between their former clubs which was the hot topic. After Celtic's derby win over Rangers, Brown insists his old side are still well ahead of their Glasgow rivals.
Celtic have got a strong squad, and as you've seen the gap when they played just the other day there, it was quite big. You know, the way Celtic front three press, the way they get after the ball, the quality they've got, I think that's the difference. Now they're going to get stronger and stronger, they'll look fitter, and usually at this period of time going from the new year to the end of the season, Celtic are very, very strong, so I'll be looking forward to seeing how they play and how they kind of go forward in the ways that Brendan wants them to go forward.
But for the former Rangers defender, the opposite view.
I don't think it's as big as it's been in previous seasons. I think obviously Rangers are closing the gap, in my opinion. We know it's 8 points at the moment with Rangers with the 2 games. You'd rather have the points in the bag. There's no getting away from that. But Rangers have an opportunity to close the gap, and hopefully they can take that. But I think it's close now. It's small margins between them, as we've seen in the Old Firm game. So, yep, I think it is closer.
The New Year derby was the second game this season without any away fans, something the former Celtic skipper would like to see addressed.
I think it all stopped when we kept winning. So I think that's maybe why that stopped. You want to go away from home, you want to see your fans as well. So I think they should maybe get that back, because you want to have that understanding with your fans. The fans want to see you at Ibrox as well, scoring and celebrating.
Meanwhile, with the transfer window now open, Hutton admits there's pressure on the Rangers hierarchy to back Philippe Clement.
Of course, with the new manager coming in, he'll have his own thoughts and ideas, and he'll be looking to bring in people that's going to make them stronger. So, of course, it's going to be important for him, it's going to be important for the hierarchy to try and get that right, to give him the tools to then going forward to try and match and better Celtic, because everybody knows you're under pressure at these clubs to win trophies. So, yeah, of course, they'll want to be getting it right.
Ronnie Charters, STV News.
St Mirren forward Alex Grieve is set to join Dundee United on loan until the end of the season. The New Zealand international, who joined the Saints 2 years ago, has made 22 appearances this season, scoring 2 goals. Callum Davidson says he's impressed by Queen's Park's plans, then after being appointed the club's new head coach. The former St Johnstone manager has signed a deal with the Championship side until the summer of 2026. Davidson succeeds Robin Veltman, who left after just 6 months in charge. Rugby, and there's mixed news on the fitness front for Glasgow Warriors and Scotland. Rory Darge's injury is not as bad as first feared, but Ollie Smith's season is over. Smith will undergo surgery on a knee injury sustained last month. Darge will miss the Warriors' upcoming games against Exeter Chiefs and Toulon, but could be available for club and country from next month. Not such good news on Ollie Smith.
No, unfortunately, another nasty injury, and that's the end of his season. And but look, he's got youth on his side, and and he was in pretty good form when he got injured. So at least he has that in the bank for his rehab. And look, we wish him all the best and a swift return.
Rory Darge, what's the prognosis on him?
Not as bad as first thought, even though it looked like a particularly nasty injury at the time. But it's the news was pretty good on it, or as good as we can hope. I think his Six Nations is still looking good.
And there are a couple of games in the SPFL tonight in League One. Leaders Falkirk, who are on a 24-game unbeaten run, are at home to Cove Rangers. And in League Two, Dumbarton are away to Peterhead. That, folks, is all your sport tonight.
OK, thanks very much, Rahman. Well, it's been another chilly day, hasn't it? Let's see how the weather is looking in the coming days with Sean.
Low pressure will be accompanied by a sudden downpour of deliciousness. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
A very good evening to you now over in the west. They've enjoyed lovely blue skies today. Ayrshire, Argyll and Bute, the Highlands. Here we've had clouds streaming in from the North Sea, and that will continue to do so with that very gentle east to northeasterly breeze through tonight. But with the cloud around, at least, it means most of us avoid a frost, especially around coastal parts. Coming inland, though, across Fife and into southern parts of Perthshire, I expect there will be a fairly widespread frost here. Temperatures down to about -1 or -2 degrees. Now, tomorrow, that cloud continues to filter its way westwards, and I expect we will see a decent wee stream of showers setting up tomorrow, mainly affecting the likes of Mid Lothian, East Lothian, and also the capital. So here we'll see a wee stream of showers, so quite damp at times, running its way into the Borders and South Lanarkshire. Elsewhere, largely dry, albeit rather cloudy. Temperatures about 4 or 5 degrees, maybe up to about 7 or 8 degrees around coastal parts, which is fairly close to average for the time of year. And because we hang on to that gentle northeasterly again on Thursday here, we hang on to the cloud, the drizzle, the best of the sunshine again further west. However, we get swap places with them on Friday, because in the west they'll see more cloud on Friday, a bit more of a westerly breeze, and here we'll see the best of the sunshine. So on Friday it should be a bit better, but it will be chilly. Even here in the capital, temperatures only about 3 degrees, so a cold day to come on Friday, but it will be brighter. Generally, temperatures rising in the next couple of days, but I've been warning you for a wee while now. We go into a proper northerly and much colder air next week. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's it from us for the moment. But you're here later with Scotland Tonight, John.
I am indeed. We've got a really powerful interview with a Scottish sub-postmaster affected by the post office crisis. Worth tuning in for. From all of us, good night.
Good night.